All right, everybody, if you can hear me, welcome to the session. My name is George Estrada. Let's see. While we're waiting for everybody to come in, why don't you introduce yourself in the background in the chat box and let us know something cool that you've learned today or that you've done this summer. And then I think Kayla has a little introduction.
Yeah, I'm just double checking that everyone made it from the waiting room. I know it's not fun to be stuck in the waiting room, but welcome to EPEW. Thank you for being superheroes in your own field. We have Mr. George Estrada here to share with us. So he'll go through some really awesome topics. From just meeting him just today, really, he's super friendly, super outgoing, and cares really deeply for what he does. He also has a link to his PowerPoint that we will share in the chat, and also we'll work hard to get that uploaded to our website or sent out through email. If you have any reflections or thoughts to share, you can hashtag EPEW 2021 on Twitter, or share with other colleagues. But we're going to do our best to have cameras on and then stay muted unless you have a question. And George, can you remind me, did you want questions before, during,
We'll
or
do,
after?
if there's a couple questions, we can kind of get through them. But if there's a lot of questions, we'll just hold off to the end and I'll try to get through all this information. Specific situations, we'll get to that hopefully at the end, and we'll try to keep it moving. Is everybody ready? Can I get some thumbs up if I see some people that are ready to go? I'm excited. I hope you're excited. And this is, I didn't get anything from the chat box. Could you tell me if anybody has shared anything cool that they've done this summer? Kayla or Linda, anything in the chat box?
Oh, we have a person that's in Kona, Hawaii today.
Ooh,
Yeah.
thank you. That's awesome. You're on a beautiful island. So a little bit about myself, just to kind of like tell you, I grew up in Southern California, San Bernardino, California. It's high poverty rates, and I've taught there for 5 years, and then I ended up moving to to Sheridan, Wyoming, and taught in Hardin, Montana, which working with a lot of different tribes, the Northern Cheyenne tribe and the Crow tribe, and you know, the Caucasian population, a little bit of Hispanic population. So I've seen poverty in the West Coast. I've seen it in cowboy country. I've seen it in Mexico growing up. I would go to Mexico twice a year. Currently, I just got hired on to be the graduation coach in Sheridan, Wyoming at the high school here. But that's all that you need to know. Our goals today is to empower you, share vocabulary and activities that will empower you to teach students in all classes. I'm going to give you examples and help you build a community and positive culture at your school. I'm going to help share a little bit of resources. And I want you to go and seek funding for ideas that you're passionate about, but you know that your students are also going to be passionate about. And I also want to learn from you. So Linda, when I throw a question out to the chat, you just try to send, you know, I'll give you a chance to share it back to me so I can hear these awesome ideas from all of you awesome teachers. You're awesome and you deserve to be commended to show up to EPEW this summer. Look at this quote: locate a resilient kid and you'll find a caring adult or several who has guided them. I want you to just ponder over that, you know, think about who were your role models, who were your examples on what it is to be who you are. And then Kayla, I think there's 6 people in the waiting room, if you can let them in. But just think about this quote just really quickly. Don't overthink it. You know, this is our job. We're gonna be helping students become more resilient and more positive and be able to overcome. This next one are the resources that I highly recommend. And if you click on them, when you click on the PowerPoint Google slide, it's going to give you a little bit more information. This book on the left, The Framework for Understanding Poverty by Dr. Ruby K. Payne, is going to be where I get a lot of this information. So if you're like, okay, well, where's he coming up with the data? Well, that's mainly where I got most of it, but I also have a little bit more experience, you know, in myself. And this little article right here is a little interesting because it kind of contradicts what she says. but there's also, you got to go and you got to make your uh, hypothesis on this information. And then the book on the right, it's going to be more towards higher ed, but it is very, very rewarding if you have a chance to look at it and just see the ideas of. So here's my question for you right now, and you're going to have 30 seconds. When you think of the word poverty, what comes to mind? Just write it in the chat box if you feel willing to share. One word, 2 words, one sentence, real quickly. Like what is, and then Linda, just read them out.
A lack of resources.
Okay.
Jordan, low income, lack of necessary resources, disadvantaged.
Okay. Okay.
Low income, yeah. Lack of support.
Lack of support, big one. Okay.
Additional obstacles.
Okay, so when we think of poverty, we have to expand our definition and not let it just be all about financial, which is what most people think poverty is. There's also emotional poverty, which basically students might not be able to control their emotions and get really upset, or they might not be able to persevere. There's also mental poverty, having the ability to just deal with the daily life, spiritual. We see that it's people that are in poverty that have, a religion or a really strong thoughts and belief in something, even if it's not, God or whatever they want to, that helps them overcome some of the craziest things that they see and they have to deal with. Physical poverty, being able to move and being able to play, if they're overweight, they might not feel as comfortable doing some of the activities that we do as physical education or health education teachers. Support systems, so they might be impoverished and not have a support system at home that are positive role models. And relationships, they could be poor in having relationships and they self-destruct every relationship that they ever have. And there could be impoverished in the knowledge of the hidden rules, which are unspoken cues and habits of groups. So if you're from an impoverished environment and you're in a wealthy neighborhood, one of the things is that if you're in a wealthy neighborhood, you don't introduce yourself. You are introduced by somebody else, because, if you're in a wealthy environment, they're going to be asking, who do you know? Your connections and things like that. So we got to expand our definition of poverty. It's important that we look at, resources that are available to our students. And remember that school is ran at a middle-class environment, which can be completely different to our students' lifestyle at home. And then we got to remind ourselves that our role as educators is to be consistent, and not just for our students, but our families and our staff, and just, so there's a lot of poverty, not just, lack of resources. There's a lot of different things when you explain the word poverty. There's 2 different major types of poverty: the generational poverty, which means that over 2 generations of the family have been in poverty, maybe financial. And then the family pattern may be extremely complex. So if you look at this family tree on the bottom left right here, Jolynn has been married 2-3 times, and then she has a kid here, and it can be changing month to month, and we have to remind ourselves that, okay, this kid has been here for a couple weeks, okay, he's gone. Okay, this new kid, and that is completely what happens in generational poverty. It can be very complex. The students might not have positive, reliable, consistent role models, and that's when you step in and you can consistently be there for them and not judge them, with their complex situations. And then there is situational poverty. Situational poverty is defined as you're financially been stricken with something recently, a death in the family, chronic illness, divorce. And the students that are in situational poverty are going to have a little bit more resources in the emotional side than most kids, because they will have seen a more consistent lifestyle at home. So, and this these are all patterns, and I want you to remember that there's always patterns are there's always the odd one out. You know, there's always our kid that's a little bit more challenging or less challenging than this. So this would be like situational poverty. You would look at a family. Susan was married, she was divorced, and then she got married, and then David got married. So basically, you're looking at these kids having, you know, they have their brothers that are stepbrothers or sisters, and then there's a little bit less confusion when you see, you know, the family tree of a middle class family. So um, the next big piece of poverty are the hidden rules. And we have to think about these when we are working with our students, because if you're impoverished, possessions are people. And when you're in the middle class, possessions are things and objects that you own, and wealth are your one of a kind objects, your legacy, your pedigree. So, if you are in a life of poverty, you only see money to be used and spent. In middle class homes, you're going to be trying to manage it and try to get to your next goal. And if you're in a wealthy environment, you're going to be looking to increase your wealth. Okay. And one of the big things about poverty, and I'm going to skip ahead, and I want you to look at this later on when you get a chance, you know, really dig into this because I don't have enough time to. Education in poverty is valued and revered as abstract, but not as reality. Okay. Yeah, so it's kind of there, you know what it is, you've heard about it. Sometimes it's valued, sometimes it's not. In the middle class, it's crucial for climbing the success ladder and making more money. Okay. Um, in wealth, it's a necessary tradition. You know, when you're in a wealthy circle, you're going to be talking about where did you go? What Ivy League school did you go? Who are your people? And it's just a different thing. So the next big thing that I'm going to be sharing today about is language. People in poverty are usually speaking in the casual register. Language is about survival. You know, in the middle class, we're going to be speaking in the formal register, which language is about negotiation. Okay. And then if you're wealthy, formal register, language is about networking. And um, so students that are in poverty and are in our classroom may not know these hidden rules. They might be living it, but they might not understand everything that's going on. And one of our things is to try to teach our students how to move to the middle class in the kindest possible ways, but also understanding where they're at. And that's why we're going to talk about language. Okay. And so I said the formal, I said casual registers of language. So the standard, I mean, the formal would be standard sentence syntax and word choice of work and school, has complete sentences and has specific word choices. Okay. Students that are in poverty are going to be speaking language between friends. You're going to have 400 to 800 word choices. You're going to be general, non-specific conversations. They're depending on nonverbal assets. So they're going to be talking with their hands. And sometimes they're not going to finish the sentence because they're just speaking in lingo. Okay. There's also 3 other registers of language. Um, it is important that we look at the resources available to our students before giving the advice and seeking solutions, because your job requires you to try to network with these students and build a relationship. And if you don't know where they're coming from, you don't know if they have siblings, and if you don't know if they have one parent or 2 parents or grandparents, it's a little bit more difficult because you're like, I'm going to call your mom. Well, my mom's not at home. You know, that doesn't scare me. So you build that relationship, and then you can address the students appropriate later on. And remember, um, our roles, yeah, I think I repeated this, but students in poverty may struggle to communicate in the formal register. So sometimes we want to just have them spit it out, communicate what we want, the information out of there, but they might not be able to just have complete sentences and tell you because they haven't been trained it. They haven't been taught it. Okay, it's nothing, not that they're not intelligent. They probably are very intelligent. Social IQ might be really high, but they might not be able to speak in that formal register. And our jobs is, it's a tricky thing to tell you this, but our jobs also include to teach students the formal register. How can you work with your teammates, complete sentences, and be to the point and not waste a bunch of time? Because if you waste a bunch of time, we're not going to get to all the activities, you know? So a little bit more on language. There's a Canadian man named Eric Berne that created with these 3 ego states. And basically, your ego state is a consistent pattern of feeling and experience directly related to a corresponding consistent pattern or behavior. Okay, so a child in poverty is not going to see themselves as a child. They are going to see themselves as adults, and they will expect to be talked to as an adult. Okay, this is, you know, that's just how their brain functions. If you come in there and you use the parent ego and you communicate to an adult, what happens? He gets very frustrated. Okay, if you're trying to talk to them like a kid that they don't know what's going on, you can very easily frustrate and anger somebody who is in poverty, because who takes care of them when they get home? They take care of themselves. Who makes the decisions on their social network? They make it themselves. And who has to be cool in front of the other kids? That kid who thinks he's an adult, or she. So the parent, this ego right here, it seems like it's you know, body language, finger pointing, gesturing, or verbal. This is very judgmental and not as nurturing sometimes. When you're in the adult ego, you're straightforward, you're non-threatening, and you're listening. And you're going to come up with, you know, why, what, how, where, how much, when, and you're going to ask the right questions to get with the information that you're looking for. Okay. And if you're in the child ego, you can have temper tantrums, whining, giggles, laughing, kids raising their hands and having a good time, baby talk. And just understand that there's some students that are not ever going to be here regardless of what we do. But what we can do is we can foster a relationship to know where they're at, communicate with them effectively, and build a really good relationship with them and work with each other, you know? So be mindful of the student's perspective. You know, discipline should be seen as a form of instruction. I'm going to say that again. Discipline should be seen as a form of instruction. Okay? It should not be my way or the highway. It should be a teachable moment for our students. Teaching students how to use the adult voice appropriately, the negotiating, is also important for success in and out of school, and in you know, when they don't use this proper adult voice, they can easily get angry and go to physical aggression and of inappropriate language. And when you have the student calm down and they're finally open and ready to listen, use metaphors and stories when appropriate, not when they're upset and they're still ready to fight or flight. You know, let this, you know, let the student have a brain break. Let them do all kinds. We all know the techniques. Let them breathe. Let them go to a corner where they can calm down. And when they're ready, you share with them why it's inappropriate for what they're doing, or ask them 3 or 4 other things they could have done to react in a more appropriate way. So I know there's a lot of information. I know there's a lot. And so I want to kind of get through everything so that we can have a little bit more time at the end to kind of ask and work with some other things. So how do we identify generational poverty? Okay, when they're at school and you see a student that has had generational poverty for a while, they will work hard for you if they like you. Okay, but if you're changing who you are and you're fake and you're being super excited when they're observing you, but you're not excited when when it's a regular class day, they will notice that. Okay, students that are in generational poverty, you know, do not use conflict resolution skills. They prefer to argue. They prefer to physically assault or fight. Okay, And, you know, they're periodically late. They miss school because of family emergencies or other things that are preventing them to show up to school. And they usually are very possessive of the people that they really like. You know, that's my friend. That's my girl, you know, whatever it is. And you just have to notice it and be okay. Well, now I notice why they're doing that, because they see people as possessions. Other things, they're disorganized, they're frequently losing paper, don't have signatures, you know, they like to entertain other people. So you have to find a balance between letting their humor take over the class and letting it be part of the normal day. Okay, and you got to listen to their jokes and understand why they're trying to have a good time, because this might be the only time of the day where they get to turn off their you know, alertness. And what I've done in the past, whenever I start getting kids at the beginning of the year and there just seems to be a lot of commotion going on, a lot of emotion and energy, I sit them all down and we talk about, this is the safest place in the world. I don't care if somebody is trying to break into the school. I don't care what you have to do outside of school, but when you are with me, this is the safest place in the world. And I want you to remember that you get to be a child here. And this is just going to be awesome. But if we can't understand that, then I haven't done my job. Okay. And that's something that I tell them. You can come up with your own speech to let them know that they don't have to be in this ego or in this type of behavior, but just let them know. Okay. So when it comes to disciplining a kid, okay, there has to be structure and there has to be choice. Okay. Because in poverty, it's not that they're going to change their behavior. I want you to think about that. They're not going to easily change, but we're asking for them for penance and forgiveness. Just letting you know that, okay, what I did was wrong. That's enough to let you know that this kid is understanding what we want out of them. So Dr. Payne argues that as educators, we need to teach a separate set of behaviors, one that are outside of schools to help them survive the nasty world that sometimes they live in, and one to survive in the middle class environment, which is school. Okay, to be successful in work and school requires self-control of this concerning behaviors. Like you have to let them know that those are inappropriate, you know, or that you were disappointed in them. And an effective discipline will have structure and choice. So you will want to have whatever discipline plan that you have to be consistent throughout the whole school year. But you should also give them 2 to 3 choices on what they think they could have done differently. Okay. And now that we get to this slide, I have a question for y'all. Okay. Think about a student that you've taught who has maybe demonstrated worrying behavior. With this student in mind, answer these questions. If you feel comfortable, please share what you think can be done to teach the student a new type of behavior, and what approaches would you use? And the questions here are, what kinds of behavior does a child need to be successful? Okay, and everybody's opinion is going to be different on that one. Does the child have the resources to develop these behaviors? Will it help to contact parents? Are resources available to them? What resources are available through the school district? How will behaviors be taught? What are other choices the child could make? What will help the child repeat the successful behavior? Think about that child that you've seen struggle to make the right choice, okay? And if you feel comfortable, you can answer question number 3, or you can answer number 4 and just type in a little response. Linda, are we getting any responses? I might give them a couple seconds.
I can start off just talking. I was teaching kindergarten through 3rd grade. And so they had classroom teachers and then they had me for PE. If there was negative behavior that continued, I would always check in with the classroom teacher to find out about the family before I would talk to the parents. Because sometimes It was not a good thing to send home discipline stuff to the parents because kids would get, beaten or treated badly. So talk with the classroom teacher first and then go from there.
And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to remind you to work with your staff members, even the custodians and the kitchen staff. All of those employees have a different relationship with every student, and they might get frustrated with them too. But they might have a family member that they're related to, or they might know somebody, or they might know why they are the way that they are acting. And we can work together as a team to come up with a healthy discipline, structure, and choice for that child. Does anybody else want to share? See, Bo's typing away. Thank you, Bo, my guy. Thank you so much, everybody.
Lori said, I feel that with my students that struggle with their communication skills, I offer them time and space.
Okay, time and space. Okay, that's a big, you're recognizing what their need is at the moment, and that's great. Anybody else, Linda?
Being positive and accepting of the student.
Yes, fantastic.
Another one, I first talked to my teammates in fine arts and LRC. Bo, I'm not sure what LRC is, sorry.
It's basically your computer lab, Learning Resource Center.
Oh, got it. Okay, and then talk to the classroom teacher.
Great.
Students need to be aware.
You have to have an open dialogue in appropriate settings. You're not going to be talking about the child right in front of him or her in the hallway. You go and you talk to them maybe in the lunchroom, or before or after school, talk to that teacher that might know them a little bit better and works for you. And how can we make there be so later on I'll talk about how we're going to try to get our kids out of poverty, but let's just keep it going. But this is good stuff. I really appreciate you guys typing in there, and I'll always respond to a message if you want to send anything to me on Twitter or wherever you can find me. Here are a couple things that happened to us, and we are okay. All right, we sometimes are a little not ready for this, and so let's just say a kid is saying inappropriate language. It's just like so common right now, right? That's just what happens. They're relying on the casual register and may not know the formal register. So what can we do to intervene? Have students generate or teach other students phrases that could be used to say the same thing. It's simple. Come up with a way to expand their vocabulary. What I've told students is like, when you're cursing, that's just showing me you have a limited vocabulary right now. So let's work on this so that we don't get in trouble, and I don't want you to get in trouble, and you don't want to get in trouble either. Okay. So if they talk incessantly during your class, because poverty is very participatory, they're always in the mix of something going on, and this is very normal in their house. So I'm not going to read all of these. I want you to go back and really look at this, and I've shared you this PowerPoint, and then I want you to think about it and say, okay, that has happened. Okay, so what should we do if a kid keeps on talking? Have the students write all their questions and responses on a note card 2 days a week. Tell students that they each get 5 comments a day. and it doesn't hurt anybody because everybody's on the same rules. And if you treat them, okay, everybody gets a chance to participate. Okay, here it is. Here's an idea on how to solve that problem. Okay, if they're disrespectful to the teacher, have a lack of respect for authority in the system, they may not know any adult worthies of respect. So you tell your students that disrespect is not a choice. Identify for students the correct voice tone, the correct voice word choice, and what is acceptable, and allow the students to practice in a safe environment. And hopefully it's like a muscle. The more you work it out, the more they're going to do it naturally. It's muscle memory. So please come back here and look at it later and take your time. But this is the way that people can move away from poverty. And this is not just the financial poverty. We're talking about all those aspects, social role models and all those things. Education is key. Education is the key to getting out and staying out of generational poverty. Individuals who leave poverty for main 4 reasons: a goal or vision of something they want or they want to have. A situation is so painful that anything would be better than that situation they're in. Someone who sponsors them, an educator, a coach, a spouse, a mentor who shows them a different way or convinces them to live differently, or a special talent or ability that provides an opportunity for them. Maybe it's music, maybe it's sports. We have to get to know our students so that we can push them and remind them. Okay? Okay, so how do we as educators help them move out of poverty if we know having a goal or vision can change their life? Or how can we sponsor them? How can we help them discover their specific talents? Share your ideas in the chat, because your brains are way more experienced than me on certain things, and I want to hear what you do to promote those healthy behaviors or those healthy goals. And you can have a conversation with the students of what type of person they want to be, what kind of life do they want. Ask them, why do they want that life? And have them write it down on a note card. And whenever they're struggling or misbehaving, you give them that note card to remind them, hey, these are your goals. How are we going to get there? Linda, do we have any responses in the chat? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, how'd that happen?
Oh,
So we have a lot of responses to previous things. I can start reading. So Scott Townsend talked about the PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention System, and so a few people have responded to that they also use that. Kate said, people first talk. I often say, I like you as a student, but I don't like the choice you have made. Treat them with respect. And let's see.
yeah.
It's not a shift in mindset, but in practice has to be applied.
Thank you all for your responses, Kate and everybody. It's how do we help identify and cultivate their talents? If we know our kid's a natural born leader, how can we put them in situations to continue to lead? If they need all the attention and they're just demanding of attention, how can we put them in a situation where they're going to thrive? Okay, and that's kind of like our chess that we have to play as teachers and educators. It's not as simple as, okay, I'm just going to put these groups together and not know any of the kids' names. You have to put them in a room where they can thrive, or an environment. Being in poverty is rarely about lack of intelligence or ability. Okay, that's a big one right there. We think that because they're impoverished, sometimes they might not be smart, but no, they have lots of ability and smart. They just haven't been exposed to the same amount of language as children as people that are in the middle class or in wealthy classes. So there was a research study that said that students that are in poverty hear 30 million words or less than people in wealthy homes. And that was done in Kansas City, Missouri. And there might have been a little racism in it. And there's that article that I put in the middle of that second or third slide. They're saying that it's more like 4 million words. So, but either way, 4 million is a big gap. So these students might not be exposed to language and the appropriate words. And so because they're always in the casual register, there can be a lot of consistent issues with language, okay? School is virtually the only place they can learn about choices and the rules of the middle class, or the hidden rules, okay? Many individuals stay in poverty not because they know it's a choice, because they don't have anybody to teach them the hidden rules or provide the resources, okay? No significant learning occurs without a significant relationship, okay? What we know from research is that one of the keys to helping students out of poverty is the relationship with educators, and that's your job. Just help them out, not anything else. So what we need to think about is how we establish positive relationship with our students. We know language matters. We know our approach to discipline matters. What other approaches can we use? What do you do to build positive relationships on a weekly basis? So go ahead and type it in the chat. What do you do on a weekly basis? Okay. I was doing Star P Student of the Day, and I would do it a postcard, and I had a little stick figure of the activity that we were doing, and I handed it out. And it was, highlighting the student that was doing a great job at PE that week. Sometimes there's two. and that's okay. What other things can you do to be positive? Um, all right. Give kids leadership roles. I like it. PE superstars that instantly classroom helpers. And Heinemann, okay. Well, I'll check that out too. Thank you, Elise. Um, here's a couple activities that I've done to build a relationship student to teacher, okay? Get to know you surveys, and they're private, you know? And unless the kids really want to share, they don't have to share. And you can do a bunch of questions like favorite color, food, you know, activity to do at home, all those things. You can do a snowball fight. You get the students to write a couple things about themselves and put it in a piece of paper, and you make it into a ball and you throw it at each other, and then they have to go find the person that the paper that they find on the ground. Okay, the name game in the circle. So we get the kids in the circle, and you do electric Estrada, and you got to do a body movement with your name. Okay, and it's a way for you to learn their names. Okay, because the key to making a relationship is first to know the student's name. Okay, you can't be calling them Jim every day and his name is Bo. You know, you got to call him by his appropriate name. All right. And then you can do follow the leader, where it's layered out and there's multiple layers to it, where you're the first leader, and then you move on to one kid is the leader for the whole group, and you're also following. And then you have them in different squads or lines, and then everybody gets a chance to be that leader, and they get to go to the front of their squad, and they're doing an activity, and everybody has to follow along. And then here's a good one. Could we do that? I think we have enough time for a 2-minute breakout session. Could we do it, Kayla? And the game that we're going to play is called The Story of Your Name. And I want you to share how your name came to be. You know, was it just the luck of the draw? So go ahead and break us up real quick, everybody. Just share how your name came to be. Sorry, Kayla. So I was speaking to a couple other people, and I was on mute. And you know, these games are not complicated, and you want to layer them, and you want to take a pause to really explain, why are we playing these games? Why is it that we're appropriate? Why is it that we're being kind to each other? Why is it that we're listening to each other? Why do we want to know each other's name, so we don't call somebody something that's going to make them upset? I'm sorry that, you know, I know it's been a lot of information. Let's go. And then if you want to build relationships with other students, like you do, follow the leader, you can always have a parking lot, because if there's that one kid that's always talking, you put a little parking lot on your wall, and then students can have a post-it with a pen or pencil. They can write down a question for later. You can have them do synchronized movement. I love doing red light, green light, where everybody has to be a solid line. And it really teaches you who can't control themselves, who can't listen. And then the kids that are getting upset really quickly, those are the kids you're going to want to get to know and build a relationship with them. You can even have groups of 3 to 5 or 2, and they could be working and making body shapes, whether it's an appliance, an animal, sports equipment, and they have to make that equipment with their body. And you know, be part of the change, engage in school activities, get to know the kids' names, create clubs, 100-mile club, dance club, intramural clubs, create bonds outside of academics. Okay, don't just be the PE teacher. You're more than that. You can go and have lunch with your students and get to know them. Expose them to as much culture as possible. When you explore the Utah, go show them the pictures of Utah and what's out there for them, and tell them about scholarships to summer camps and stories about inspirational athletes. Read them books. I'm sorry, I know it's something that we don't think of as PE teachers, but there's okay. There's really good books that you can read them. Let's Play as a Team by PK Hallman, and reach out and find opportunities for your students and what they are interested in. Okay, this is a little bit of my kids in the past. Create a culture where students are welcome, represented, and respected. Provide mentorship with students who may not have a role model at home. Teach them the hidden rules of different classes, and then speak to them the appropriate register and ego. Okay, people will appreciate you if you go out there, but you also have to appreciate other people. So if you did not get the link to the presentation, it's right here, tinyurl.com / capitalize EPEW poverty. One more thing that I do want you to take in consideration is that I added more resources at the end for you to look at your own time. Please go back and look at this This is a quiz on if you could survive poverty. And if you can check off all those things, you can definitely survive poverty. If you could check off all these things in wealth, which I could not check off, okay, you're going to see that there's very different dynamics in each class. And then could you survive with a partner from a different class set? This is very important because you sometimes see relationships falter because of these things. But here are some opportunities for you. Okay, please go to Spark, PE, Grant Finder, all kinds of grants, active schools grants, 100-mile club. Join. If you haven't started a mile club, try it out. If you get pushback, try a different activity that the school can support. All Kids Bike is a program from K through 2 where students get to learn on a balance bike, and then by the time they're in second grade, they can ride a real bike. Shape America grants, Play 60. You need to create opportunities for our students the best that you possibly can with the ability and short time that we have on this planet. So please go out there and just check them all out. And I know that I talked a bunch, and then if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat. Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you everybody for showing up. Bo, Linda, you guys are all people. You're all awesome. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you for attending the 48th Annual Elementary Physical Education Workshop. We're glad you were here.
Please follow us on our social media platforms. EPEW can be found on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Please check out our website for links to more great sessions. Just go to epew-cp.weebly.com and click on the virtual EPEW 2021 tab at the top and scroll down.
EPEW 2021 Educators Assemble would not be possible without the support and dedication from the amazing EPEW committee. The committee has been hard at work for months preparing for this workshop. Thank you to Linda McGee, Barbara Groton, Scott Wilson, Stephanie Sandino, Julie Miller, Jessica Monlux, Kayla Ailman, Shelby Lozano, Andrea Chavez, Scott Townsend, and Cindy Chase.
Thank you for attending EPEW, where our motto is, come to learn, leave as family.